Welcome everyone to the DAZN Soccer Show. I'm Adi Oladipo and I'm joined by a couple of very, very special guests as we look ahead to a very, very special game. Nader Manua, former Man City and QPR defender, and DAZN Spanish correspondent Semra Hunter joins us as well as we talk El Clasico, the game that's called the Clasico. I love it. Absolutely can't wait to talk about this game. Semra, let's bring you in first straight away. This game's been played for over 100 years. What makes this game so special? Why is it considered the best derby in world football?
It's a very good question because it's probably the biggest game in world football when it comes to a club match. It's massive for so many different reasons. I think one of it is that you kind of already pinpointed the fact that the history is there, but there's political division, there's cultural division. It's about fighting for identity. It's about fighting for bragging rights. It's about fighting for your ideals and your values and what you represent. And these two clubs couldn't represent things that are completely more different. In the case of Barcelona, they've long been identified with the Catalan identity. It goes all the way back to the early 1930s when there was a Spanish Civil War. And that was when Més que un club, more than a club, was created as a motto. The Camp Nou was a place where at a time when language was stripped, when culture was stripped, Catalan people could go and feel safe and they could use the language and they could be Catalan. Whereas in the Spanish capital, you have a Real Madrid who is more representative of, let's say, the establishment, sort of the more Spanish, typical, traditional sense of identity. But as things have progressed throughout time, especially in the 21st century, where you had the big superstars, you have Messi versus Cristiano Ronaldo, you have two of the biggest clubs, if not the biggest clubs on the planet in terms of popularity. Both of them have over 250 million followers across all social media. These are massive global clubs. And so apart from that, you've got great football, you have great moments that have popped up over the years, and it rakes in about 400 to 500 million viewers across the planet. So there's all sorts of reasons why you should want to be tuning into a Clasico whenever it rolls around.
Certainly, and everyone will be tuning in. Nadem, she mentioned Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi there, and for sort of 7 or 8 years, those two, arguably the best two players that we've ever seen in world football, they were going at each other. It no longer has a Messi, it no longer has a Ronaldo, it still has other big players, but has it lost a bit of its magic because those two players are elsewhere now?
I think that's very subjective, to be honest. And as both players were leaving the league, I was a bit concerned as such, but then still I'll be tuning in to watch the game because it's more than a game, it's enormous. It means so much. And even though we don't have that sort of extreme star power that exists then, you've still got it's like Benzema and Lewandowski. That's still very, very, very good. Obviously, those two we mentioned, they were talking about arguably two of the greatest players to ever do it. We can see how much the derby means. And, you root for one side, or I do anyway. I know you've changed your mind over the years, but out of principle, people tune into this game. You supporting Barcelona or you supporting Real. You lean one way or you lean the other. It usually makes for a fantastic footballing tie, and that's why it's one of the biggest games in world football.
This is a match that really transcends football. So because of that, and because of all of the elements that go around that, it does really pique the interest of people all across the planet. So that in turn obviously has the knock-on effect of people then wanting to pay attention to what's happening in La Liga, or at least that's the hope, that's the belief, that people will want to see what else is happening across the league in any case. So it's kind of like it invites you to come and check out what's going on, and then you want to stay and stick around to see everything else that's going on, especially this season, because you have Real Madrid and Barcelona who are level on points. They have almost identical records. Both of them have 7 wins, 1 draw, no defeats so far. The only thing separating the two is goal difference, and that's where Barcelona slightly edge them for right now. And so I think it definitely is one of those great opportunities to really sell the strength of the league and to really showcase a lot of other players, a lot of other talent, a lot of other managers, and everything else that kind of goes along with it. But it obviously is a very special game in and of itself that captures so much attention and so much interest just because of what it is and what it represents, I think, in the world of club football.
Yeah, no, honestly, look, the best players in the world have played for both sides, and they still currently do. When you are talking about Benzema's and your Modric and the Lewandowski's. Nadem, obviously, we've been watching it from the UK, and we've always been transfixed with this game. What are your memories of El Clasico? Kind of what springs to mind when you think of this rivalry?
Oh, well, you can go all the way back to the point where, you're seeing, say, some of the iconic sort of Barcelona teams with the academy setup. You're seeing the Busquets, the Xavi's, the Iniestas, the Messi ahead of them, but then go back further. You've seen Ronaldinho doing what he did, Messi doing what he did, and then Ronaldo scoring the goals there, silencing the new camp. There's so many highs, but I think the one that probably rings the loudest for me was my mum was lucky enough to go to a game at the Camp Nou, one of these games, and it was the 3-3. It was one of the best games she ever saw. And, she wants to say one of the best games she ever saw was watching me play football. But the reality is seeing Barcelona Real Madrid 3-3 at Camp Nou is probably the bigger game. So I think that was probably the main one. But there's so many iconic moments, say Ronaldinho slaloming through and hearing people like clapping for him in the Bernabeu. Like, these are really iconic moments, are the ones which I feel everybody shared. And obviously this is more of a Barcelona bias from my perspective. But it's an incredible game, and I'm sure people who, right behind Real Madrid have got some great memories as well. But it's a fantastic tie. They never seem to disappoint.
Semri, you mentioned how close they are in the table, right? Only separated by goal difference. So going into this game, who are people favouring? Both are doing well in the league. Barcelona not so well in the Champions League. We're probably going to get your take on that as well. But who are people leaning towards? Real Madrid because they're at home. Although remember what happened last season at home. They got thumped 4-0. Who are people favouring?
I think that people had different ideas before the game in the Champions League. I think now people are starting to change their tune after what happened against Inter Milan. I think there was this sort of belief that they could go to the Santiago Bernabeu, that they could do it again, maybe not 4-0. Obviously, Karim Benzema was not there in that game, which meant that Carlo Ancelotti decided to completely change things up tactically, and it just blew up in his face. It completely crashed and burned the idea that he had in place. That's not going to happen again. So I think Barcelona really are kind of against the ropes here. It's going to be a very difficult game for them. They still have a lot of injuries in defense. He's still trying to put some kind of defensive line together. And the other day against Celta, he played 3 left backs in a line of 4. Against Inter Milan, we saw what happened. They were all over the shop. It was a disaster class. That can't happen again, especially if you go up against an informed Karim Benzema, Vinicius, Rodrigo, Valverde, pick whoever you want from Real Madrid. So I think now, I would have gone with a draw if you had asked me this question yesterday before the game, but I think now Real Madrid are probably going to edge this one.
Nadim, it can be separated by 2 star players, right? He took 2 of the best, probably number 9s in world football in Benzema and Lewandowski. Benzema is now back. We saw Lewandowski score a couple of goals midweek for Barcelona. If you had to defend against one, who would you prefer not to defend against?
Oh my goodness gracious me! That's such a good question. I think they're different because I think Lewandowski, you'll be in contact with him more because he stays a bit higher. But in Benzema, he sort of roams around a bit more and has a bigger impact on the game, not just with his goal scoring. So realistically, the answer is I'm very, very happy that I'm retired because I'll never have to face either, nor have the sort of panic about trying to decide which one would be worse for me. But they're both incredible in their own right. And that's why they're a joy to watch. These are guys who've done it year in, year out for many, many, many years now. And that's why going into the game, we may believe it'll be a draw, there's not much in it. But we always expect goals, and it's because they've got 2 of the best. Yeah, 2 of the best are playing up front for 2 of the best sides in the world.
Indeed, that's why both of them are so high up in terms of being favourites for the Ballon d'Or, which is coming up very, very soon. Semra, when you do look at both sides, and in particular Barcelona, obviously look so far not so good in the Champions League. I remember speaking to you a few weeks ago, and we were talking about Barcelona's financial situation, and I think key was to get to the knockout stages in the Champions League. That's no longer in their hands. What's going on with Barcelona? Xavi looks like he's put a good squad together, but it isn't quite clicking, in the Champions League.
No, unfortunately for them, it's not. And actually, he's only won 1 game across 6 since he's been in charge of Barcelona in the Champions League. So today, you could say the daggers are starting to come out from the Barcelona media, from the fans. Mm-hmm. And for the first time that I've noticed, people are starting to turn their back on Xavi. They're starting to point the finger at him. And they're really upset because I think they do understand the reality that, as you say, qualifying to get out of the group stage is no longer in their hands. Mathematically, it's still possible, but it's not very likely. So that would be the 2nd year running that they would end up in the Europa League. Financially, it would be calamitous. Not to mention that it would be humiliating because of everything that they did in the summer trying to build themselves up again to compete with the elite. And I think in some ways Laporta did the club a bit of a disservice because by building them up so much, now they have so much farther to fall. And so financially, as you mentioned, they calculated getting into the quarterfinals of the Champions League, which would be about 23 million euros. So if they don't do that, they lose that, obviously. Not to mention that if they went even further than that, they could make even more. Real Madrid, for example, won 74 million in prize money for going the whole distance. And if they manage to win and they reach the final of the Europa League, they would only get about 15 million. So it definitely doesn't help them in terms of the money they want to put into the coffers. But I think beyond that, people are just really angry at how poor they were and how poor they've been in the Champions League. Like I say, it doesn't help that they've had a lot of injuries, and the international break really cut the momentum that they did have. They were playing really well before that, but the last 4 games, they just have looked really off the pace, really uncoordinated, and really disorganized. So I think there's going to be some big consequences. It's just a question of when that's going to happen. And obviously we'll see what happens in the Clasico, because that could just make things so much worse.
Yeah, not so good at all right now for Barcelona, especially in the Champions League. In the league, it is very good. I want to play a quick game with you guys. We've got a couple more minutes here. Quick game. Nadim, I know you're a big Barcelona fan. I'm going to edge to the Real Madrid side. I think Semra, maybe, working for La Liga TV as well as DAZN. She's probably safe to say she's on the fence. Let's do a Real Madrid-Barcelona 11 of the last 20 years. Can we do that? Of the last 20 years. Real Madrid, Barcelona.
Good Lord,
11.
okay.
I think we can agree on some. Can we agree
I think
on
we can agree
Casillas?
on some, for sure.
Ica in goal? Ica Casillas in goal?
Yeah, I think so. It has to be.
Okay,
Yep.
right back.
Dani Alves.
Yes, Dani Alves.
Left back?
You could say Marcelo, but you know what? Let's go with Marcelo. Yeah.
Marcelo?
Okay,
Marcelo?
if you say so.
All right.
I mean, you could say Jordi Alba, but
You could say Jordi Alba as well, but I think Marcelo. I think most people
I'm
would
going to
say
go with Marcelo. Yeah.
Marcelo.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Centre backs. We're going 4-3-3.
Wait, we're going for the 20, you said for the last 20 years, because maybe we
Last
go with
20
Roberto
years.
Carlos instead, actually. You know what? Ooh.
Ooh.
Because now I'm thinking Roberto Carlos, maybe. Oh, that's a tough call. We said Marcelo, let's just stick with it.
Let's go Marcelo. Centre backs.
Is it PK Ramos, or do we have to do something else?
Oh, I mean, you could say
It's interesting.
Puyol.
I was going to say Puyol Ramos.
Yeah, I was going to say Puyol Ramos as well.
Okay, Puyol Ramos.
Okay,
Yep.
3 in the midfield. This is going to be a problem.
Oh, come on. It's got to be Xavi, Iniesta, and Busquets, eh?
Has to be.
I would say
surely.
yes, but I think some would say Modric deserves to be somewhere around this conversation.
He does. I fully 100% agree with that. And
Well, instead of who?
But
I don't know. Modric, Iniesta, Busquets?
no, you can't take Xavi out.
No, you can't. You can't. You can't take that
Xavi
free.
out.
I'm with you. Xavi, Iniesta, Busquets. You can't take that Barcelona free from anyone. I agree. That's the best free. All right, the front three. We know 2.
Yeah.
Well, Messi and Cristiano.
Yes. And then you've got Ronaldinho, Ronaldo.
I mean, Ronaldinho did get a standing ovation at the Bernabeu, and only 2 players in history managed to do that. Maradona was the other one. So maybe Madridistas would be okay with that choice.
Yeah.
Wait. Are we saying, sorry, 1 second. Are we saying that Zidane does not get in this team?
It's a tough school.
Wait, but where do you put him? Oh, that's tough because Ronaldinho and Zidane, they weren't the same type of players. So it's like comparing apples to oranges. So you can't really say that. I mean, unless we just want to say we want to get one of them on the pitch. It doesn't matter where we put them.
I have to, no matter how I do it, I have to have R9 in this team.
We need a striker, right?
We need a striker. So R9
you can have,
through the middle.
Ronaldo on the left, and you have Messi on the right. You can have
there you go.
R9 in the middle.
And on the bench, we have Zidane, Eto'o, and the rest of them.
Exactly.
Incredible, man.
And listen, R9, he played for both.
Yes.
So
even more so, he gets in.
Exactly. Even though he was better with Barcelona, but he covers both grounds.
He certainly does. All right, well done. We agreed. People are not going to be happy. I know there's going to be a lot of superstars not happy with
people
that.
People are never happy.
People are never happy indeed. Semra, always great
to have you.
What about the
manager?
Thank you so much. Oh, manager.
That's a tough one.
Is it?
Pep or Ancelotti?
Is it? I know it's got to be Guardiola, doesn't it?
Has to
Pep or
be Guardiola.
Ancelotti?
Has to be
Has to be
Guardiola.
Guardiola. Has to be
I
Guardiola.
say
Guardiola.
I say Guardiola. There you go.
There
We
you go.
agreed. We all agreed on something for once. Sembra, thank you very much. Nadem, thank you very much. Should be an absolutely fantastic El Clasico. Don't forget as well, UEFA Women's Champions League is back next week. And remember, that is live and exclusive on DAZN.